Do you still think in today's market, for those potentially first-time buyers who are renting right now, that home ownership is still a good investment?
Yeah, no,
I
I think that's a really
absolutely
great
do
point.
believe in home ownership as a good investment. You have to think long term. That's what it is. And the other thing is, nobody needs to feel like they have to get into something today. It's okay if you wait a few years, if you get your finances in the right position, save up a little. It's okay if you wait. As soon as you're desperate to get into a property, you're going to make a bad decision. You're going to overpay. In fact, we find usually if we're going to find savings in a property, it's when we purchase that we find that savings. So long term is good. And another thing I do advise, because you have to find creative ways to get into the market now. So maybe you partner up with somebody, or maybe there's another family member that you start with. But for parents, if you're in a financially comfortable position, the greatest thing you could do for your children or your future children would be to buy a home today and then rent it. Just rent it out for the next 20 years. And then when the kids are old enough where they need their own place, you've actually just given them the most valuable gift they can have in their life, and you've gotten them into the real estate game. Not everybody can do that, but if you can, I think that's the greatest thing you could do as a parent.
But when you look at the housing market today as compared to pre-COVID and just 4 years ago, it is much more affordable to rent across the nation than it is to own a home. And that wasn't the case 4 years ago. We talked a lot about renter nation during COVID because everybody was in this work from anywhere environment, and you didn't necessarily have to stay anywhere for a long time, and it would give you more freedom. Does that factor into it? I get that if you're long term, but if today's 20-something sees themselves as moving around for the next 20 to 30 years, is really home ownership, because I don't want to say we're all old, but maybe we are a little when it comes to that.
But the one thing
it is a sort of a bit of an old school mentality in some ways. You're absolutely right. Real estate is not the only way to invest. I think you had a great speaker on just before us here as well, and it's something that you can consider is what makes sense for your lifestyle. If you are somebody, I think there's a stat I saw a few years ago that the average family nowadays moves every 3 to 5 years. That's not how it used to be. It used to be a generational thing. You pass your home down, then you pass your home down. If you're moving that often, think of all the costs associated with selling and buying, whether it's tax or whether capital gains or whether it's your real estate fees. It doesn't make as much sense. So you just have to establish what makes sense for your lifestyle. And if real estate is something feasible, I do definitely suggest finding a path into it. But it's not the be all end all.
No, and it's also not rocket science, too. You have so many people that think there's a secret sauce to be successful. And really, it comes down to budgeting. If you can just understand how to budget your life, spend appropriately for your lifestyle, understand what percentage of your income is going toward housing and toward other expenses, and think long term. Even when we were younger, we were flipping houses and we were putting all this energy into it and resources, and it was stressful. And on the average flip, we would have made about 30 grand profit by the time we cleared everything, but it was so much work. And then another fellow who came and just picked up a lot of our properties, he just held on to them for a few years and eventually sold and cleared $1 million and did nothing. So my advice is, why worry about all the stress? Set yourself up in a home that you can grow into. If you know you're going to have children, there's no sense in buying a smaller home that you're going to have to sell and pay all those fees and lose out on that aspect of your equity. Buy something that you can grow into and think long term. It'll be a lot more stress-free, and you'll, in the long term, make a lot more money.